What is going on YouTube? Carter here with Edged Mindset. We're going to be taking a look at this amazing knife from Medford, the Genesis T. If you don't watch the rest of this video, if you can get your hands on one of these, and you at all are interested in checking out a Medford, and you want a Medford that is more usable and carry friendly, stop watching this video. Go and see if you can track one of these down, because this is hands down probably my favorite quote-unquote hard use folder. Oh man, how do I even say this? It's a really good, cool knife, right? So it balances cool form, cool function. It has that solid, sweet, awesome feel that you get if you like overbuilt, tough folders, but it doesn't have all of the baggage, right? It's very slim, it's small, it's carryable. Now, I'm not saying this is the best EDC knife for your needs, but what I am saying is if you are at all tantalized by the realm of these kind of knives, this is an amazing way to dip your toes into this world with this guy here. You know what would be fun? I'm going to do a comparison with a full Praetorian custom tie so that you can see the size difference. So the first thing you're going to notice is it's not that crazy different, right? I know there's some misconception where people kind of think this thing is going to be, well, two different misconceptions. One is that this knife is big but not crazy big, and that this knife is like half the size, so it's going to be too small. The other misconception is that this is an incomprehensible giant beast, and so this won't be small enough. And that's not true. The answer is in the middle. The Praetorian, despite its reputation, profile-wise, is not what I would consider a giant knife. It's a large knife. It's not a giant knife. It is thick. The full tie version has a very thick blade, but as you can see, the scales aren't actually that crazy thick in comparison to the blade. This one's sculpted, so it's going to be a little bit thinner. And so conversely, the Genesis is not a super scaled down version. I mean, I don't know what percentage we're looking at here, but it's not 50% the size, right? Then you're getting into like the micro Praetorian, which is another option too, if the Genesis is too big. For me, it is absolutely not. I would never want anything smaller than the Genesis. But as you can see, it's not some crazy, like, super shrunk down version. It's just moderately smaller. Now, thickness, of course, is quite a bit different. So if you're familiar with the Genesis T, which is the full profile version of the tie, but in this thickness, this is the exact same thickness. So the blade stock and the titanium scales are the exact same as the regular Praetorian T. Maybe one of these days I'll go through all the different sizes and models. It's somewhat similar to like the Demco 80-20 series, right? Where there's different thicknesses, they're different sizes, and they're made in different places. And these are all made in the US, but I just mean there's a lot of different varieties within the same model because it's it's a flagship model, so it makes sense. So anyways, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk some basic specs. So what do we have real quick? Titanium scales, tumbled. This is the bronzed version. Now, I will say Medford's bronzed is not super bronzy, and that can be good or bad depending on your liking. If you like heavy-duty bronze, you're not really going to like it that much. But if bronze is too gold colored for you in a lot of the way other people use it, you're going to really like it. This one's actually more gray looking than the bronze. I swear it is bronze, though. I'm almost 100% sure this is supposed to be bronze. This is bronze as well. And as you can see, it's kind of more of a chocolatey type, dark chocolate color where you get a little bit of bronze hints in the stonewashing. But it is not a super gold colored bronze. It's very subdued. So I really, really like it. I think it looks good. And so that means what you can do is if you're doing the custom Medford thing, you can get the hardware bronze, which is gonna be more goldy bronze colored, and still do the bronze and not have it be overpowering. Anyways, titanium frame lock. This one has the over travel with the 6-gun pivot because it is a newer knife. Me personally, I will not buy a Medford without the over travel. It's just a personal thing. I've got to have that. And I also know that signifies it's a newer model. And in my mind, Medford has continued to improve their manufacturing processes. So in my mind, the newer model you get, the better it's going to be. That may not be true, but that's the way I think about it. Now, this has a titanium pocket clip, tumbled. This thing is not going to show anywhere. Like if you put wear on this knife, it's just going to make it look more better. You know what I mean? There's no finish to wear off on this. I mean, I guess you could get some deep scratches in the bevel and you'd notice that, but everything else, you're not going to notice anything. We've got the steel breaker right here. Just has the NPC coating, I believe they call it. So it's kind of a silver type color as opposed to the black of the PVD coating on there. The pocket clip is the more reasonable pocket clip. So on the Praetorian tie, the full size, you get the giant pocket clip with the sharp edges. You know, a lot of people complain about it. It works well. It holds it well. It's got a lot of surface area. It stays in your pocket well. But some people don't like it. It's very big and arguably a little obnoxious. Same with the Fat Daddy. This one has the same type style pocket clip, obviously different, right? It's a custom clip for each model, but a giant pocket clip. But the Genesis T and the Praetorian T have this more subdued, reasonable pocket clip. And it's perfect. It's perfect. 100% perfect. Another thing I want to point out on this knife, and I'll do this when I compare it to the Strider AR, because I feel these knives fit the same niche, is that the milling for the lock bar is on the inside on this one. On the Praetorian, it is on the outside. Why does that matter? Well, especially when you have the pocket clip set up like this, where the contact point's right here, and then the milling would be right here, the lip of your jeans can get caught in this little crevice, and it can get stuck and be awkward pulling it out, and it kind of gets stuck, and then you kind of have to pull it out. So because it's on the inside, it's just 100% smooth in and out of the pocket with perfect retention. Really good pocket clip on this, done perfectly well, especially for what this knife is trying to be. Over travel stop, like I mentioned, simple sandwich construction. Because this is smaller, it really just has the glass breaker slash back strap here with 2 screws going through each side. So once again, no longer, Medford does not screw directly into tie anymore. Everything is either standoffs or going through a steel breaker. There's, you know, I know in the older knives he would screw right into the tie and people didn't like that. He hasn't done that in years. It's amazing how people still hold on to very old things. Has not done that in years and years and years. This has your 6-gun shooter pivot. You can adjust this with a number 14 spanner that you can easily buy off of Amazon. Just spans 2 of these holes. You don't need to go in all 6. You only need 2. I know a lot of people try to construct these crazy homemade tools for adjusting the pivot where they've got these 6 pins. You don't need 6. You just need 2 on each side. That's all this is. Just like the old version that only had 2 holes, all they did is just add more decorative holes. Still use the same tool, number 14 spanner, to adjust and take apart this knife, if you are so inclined. You have the Spartan milling right here, obviously a lot more shallow because the scales are thinner. This one is rocking s90v steel, designated by the 9 right there, and of course the packaging says such. I love this blade, the drop point blade. You don't see it as much, and I don't know why, because to me, on the Praetorian, the drop point is actually a little more visually appealing than the Tonto. The Tonto is the classic, and, you know, yeah, there's multiple grinds there, compound grind, that's really cool. But to me, the drop point looks better, and it's just more functional for practical use, especially carry, something like this. You just have this nice, easy belly. This is good for generally all cutting tasks, right? You can use this for a lot of different things. It's also a little easier for people to sharpen. If you're using a clamp system, you just clamp right here in the middle, plenty of flats to clamp onto, and then you have full access to use your stones, sharpen this up. You don't have to worry about different angles and things like that. So in terms of a usability knife, just like this one, which in my mind, this is perfectly suited for EDC, everyday carry, top notch, s90v, perfect steel choice, blade, perfect choice in my mind. Hollow ground, So it is really thin behind the edge. It is a very, very good slicer. The stock is thick, but not obnoxiously thick. This thing is meant for cutting, and it's really good at cutting. Perfect, perfect, perfect. The detent on the closed position is 100% tight and perfect. This is a little pet peeve of mine. I absolutely hate it when you get wiggle when the knife is closed. That's just both my hands moving. This one is perfectly tuned, perfectly centered, and perfectly locked up. Opening on this knife is actually easier than the full-size Praetorian. The full-size Praetorian does the ball milling, so it's rounded in here, which looks good. But it makes it a little more difficult to open because you don't have a strung lip. You kind of slip out a little bit on this knife. The full-size Praetorian is not the easiest knife to open. It just isn't. But on the Genesis and the Praetorian T, it's got a hard line milled in it. So you get this strong lip. It's actually quite sharp in here. But that means that it's so much easier to get your thumb in there and open this thing up, spider flick it open if it was a little bit looser, and it's really easy to open this knife up compared to the Praetorian. You think it would be the opposite. You would think because this is thinner stock, you wouldn't get as deep of a channel and it would be harder to open. That is not the case. This is actually easier to open than this thick bad boy right here, hands down. Lockup on this thing is great. I didn't buy this new. I don't know how many hands this went through. So this is used and carried, and I can tell that not so much by wear, because like I said, the finish pattern on this thing is ripe for not showing wear. I know this because it was full of lint, and other debris. Not to like an alarming standpoint, but I can just tell there's stuff in there. So this has been carried, and the lock is settled in at about, what is that, 40%? So perfect. Perfect lockup in my opinion. You can see the coverage right there. Good amount of coverage. We're not hitting just a tip. So really good lockup. This thing is rock solid. One thing I like about the Praetorian model is the ease of unlocking the knife. I've got big, fat sausage thumbs, and it bugs me when I can't really get in and unlock the knife. So this is solved in two different ways. The lock bar sits quite proud. You can see right there, you've got a lot of real estate sticking out, similar to like a Sebenza, right? It sticks out. But then it also has a little channel milled in here that you can get your thumb in. So unlocking is super, super easy. This has a fairly stiff lock bar, and it is not a problem at all. Whereas something like this Direware here, love this knife, beautiful. That's not really the case. You can see there's, it's got chamfering, but it sits pretty much smooth. This one isn't too bad because the lock bar tension is very light, and so you can easily get in there and just push it over. But it still somewhat bugs me because it's not a problem on this one, but I really like it when they make unlocking the knife easy. One bad example is the Spartan Harsey folder. I really don't like how difficult it is for me to get my thumb in there. I slip off of it all the time. You'll see that in my review if that's already been put up. But that is a personal pet peeve of mine. Lockup is achieved with these two tank pins right here that interact with both sides of the tie. They are milled out right here to fit perfectly with the pins. Some of you new guys will just take that for granted, but back in the Wild West of knives in the early 2010s, when all this stuff was being figured out, you had to look at this stuff because oftentimes the pin would hit a flat surface, and if you open it hard enough and often enough, it would start to indent the titanium, which would then affect your lockup. So you had to look at those things and say, okay, lockup percentage is good out of the box, but it's hitting a flat titanium surface, and it's eventually going to start wearing in a divot, which is then going to make the lock bar proceed further in, and things like that. So now, a lot of these things are kind of just figured out, and most knives you get are going to have an adequate and perfectly designed and engineered lock interface, lock face, stop, all those things. But back in the day, that wasn't really the case. Another kind of not unique thing, but interesting thing on the Praetorian, is that it's double system on both closed and open. Usually when you have lock pins like this that do the open position like that, usually in the closed position you're going to have some sort of internal stop pin, you know, like a strider that does the closed. But because this has such a wide kind of fanning piece right here, it's actually used both open and closed, which is pretty cool. And also pretty nice in terms of detent. So for example, this one is the opposite. So this one has no stop pins externally. It uses this large internal stop pin for both the open and the closed. So in the closed, the tang right here is what interacts with the stop pin, and in the open, the back here is what interacts. And you can see how it's got a little curve in here so that it can mate with the stop pin. However, in the closed, it's a smooth. You can see the little mark right there where it's hitting. So in theory, if you close this thing really hard over and over, you're going to get a little bit of a dent right here, and so it's going to close a little further in, and you'll start getting some lash, as Greg would say, in the closed position. But you know, you're far more likely to open it aggressively than close it aggressively. But anyways, so back to the Genesis, baby. I just really love this knife. I was surprised when I got it. I didn't think I was going to like it that much. I thought it would be too small, and it is small. I mean, I wouldn't go any smaller than this, but you can see I've got big hands. I get a full 4-finger grip on here. Excellent jimping too, like really aggressive. Maybe a little too aggressive for some people, but I don't see why, unless you're actually like rubbing it, you know, just pressing in on it. I don't see why that would be a problem. But to me, this knife just does everything right. All the things it's trying to do, right? And like I said, you know, I'm not saying this is the best EDC knife ever created. It's wide. It's more heavy duty than most anybody needs or wants. But for what this is trying to do, like he really hit it out of the park. I was very surprised. It does all the things it's trying to do correctly, and there's really nothing I would change on this knife at all. Actually, that's a good way to put it. There's nothing I would change on this knife. It's perfectly executed, in my opinion, for what it's trying to be and what it would be used for. A+. Really like this one. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Leave a comment down below. What do you think of this knife? Do you think it's as good as I think it is? Let me know your opinions, and I'll catch you on the next one.